We have, of course, got the Medal of Excellence, Dr. Jim Pettigrew from Illinois. We have Joaquin from Young Brands, Dr. Lyons, President and Founder of Alltech, and Mark Lyons, who chaired the session. So, could I invite anybody to give us the first question, please? Yes, thank you very much.
My name is Tom Quaife. I'm with Dairy Herd Management Magazine, and my question is for Dr. Lyons. Could you give an example of how milk could be branded to make it as exciting as Coke is?
Very interesting question. So how can we take milk and make milk as exciting as Coke is? I remember being asked that question in Peru years and years ago, and they said, well, there was nothing new about milk and you couldn't make milk exciting, etc. Now you can start talking in terms of value-added products coming from milk, and surely a great example of that is Dippin' Dots. I mean, Dippin' Dots is a $60–70 million product. It's very expensive ice cream, and the brand is a little short of phenomenal. However, if we back into the milk itself, and I remember a movie, it was called A Man for All Seasons, way back, and I said, why would you not have a milk for all seasons? When you get as old as Mark and you're approaching the geriatric stage, then he has to be concerned with bones, and he has to be concerned with those sort of things. When you're at my stage in life, and much earlier, and of course you still have all your hair growing and all that stuff, then maybe you have a different type of milk. But seriously, we could create a milk for young children, and a milk for young children will be a milk that's rich in antioxidants, and let's not just fall into the trap of omega-3 fatty acids, because I mean that's sort of tested and proven. Let's think of a different milk for young children. Then in fact, as the young adults and rapidly growing adults, surely we need different calcium levels, or surely we need, the bone structure becomes very important. Then when mothers are expecting babies and so forth, there's a whole different milk that's required. And then when people get older, you only have to look into Southeast Asia and see what happens with old people who have not had the exposure to the calcium that we have had, and you see osteoporosis and things like that. So I believe there's a real possibility for a milk for all ages. I can't remember the movie star in A Man for All Ages, but I actually put a program together, and I think when I gave it to the Peruvian milk company, they said, oh yeah, that's sort of interesting, but they didn't do anything about it. Hope I answered your question. Paul, thank you very much. That puts you and I in the same age group, and for all ages.
Can I ask a question now, Joaquin, perhaps the same question. Branding of milk, or branding, what's your view of, because branding is a huge issue for agriculture today with what we call commodities. How do we gain more value from those?
Well, it's a good question. Obviously, I'm not a marketing guy. But certainly, I think when it comes to creating a brand, you have to make it relevant to the consumer. And you have to make it a brand that means something to them. And especially with commodities, typically they become too generic. And they may be good in all the benefits, but they're basically lost in the absence of having something special. So I think branding is a way to communicate a benefit to the consumer and make it relevant. So I think the idea, obviously, of creating a milk that has some relevance, some benefit, and then also a name that people can recognize, because very fundamental as you create a brand.
Great. Okay. Any other questions, please? Yes, Simon.
I have a question for Pelaez. Oh, sorry, Simon Shane, Watt Group. Mr. Pelaez, have you any idea of the volume of eggs and poultry meat that your company is purchasing for to serve your market?
Oh gosh, I don't have the actual number, but I will tell you, of the total purchases that we have in China, the number one by volume and by dollars is chicken. I mean, it's the core of what we sell, and we obviously have chicken in a number of forms. You know, the chicken on the bone, and then we have the hamburgers, the filet that we use. We have obviously the popcorn chicken, but it's a very, very large volume. Now, in terms of chicken, in the total tonnage that China produces, maybe not that big, because as you know, the poultry industry in China is the largest in the world. But or pretty close, maybe after Brazil, but you know, between those two, or the US. But in terms of some of the specialty items, we buy quite a bit of that, like I said, chicken wings, for example.
Okay, yes, please, 1 second.
Joe Sheehy, I'm from Ireland. I'd just like to ask a question. To what extent do you think that soya milk will compete or maybe get very hard on the dairy industry? Because you were saying that soya milk is growing a lot in its use, and will it become more popular in China rather than cow's milk?
I suppose Joaquin or Dr. Lyons.
Soy
milk.
Yeah.
Do you see soy milk replacing regular milk?
Well, traditionally, drinking milk in China is relatively a new phenomenon. I think, you know, if I look at my friends, that they're in their 30s, when they were young, when they were kids, they did not drink milk. Okay, so many of them, drinking milk is a new phenomenon in China. The beverage of choice is soy milk, has been there for a long time. And it is basically the staple of the Chinese diet. They drink it for breakfast, they drink it cold and warm and flavor, and the choices that you can get are enormous. So that is the #1 beverage, you know, certainly. I think, you know, obviously infants, they have now milk powder, but as they get, you know, older, I mean, you look at the majority of the people, they drink soy milk.
Okay, another question?
If I can
Yes, please.
The fact is that soya, as Joaquin said, is the drink of choice. But the fact also is that there are problems in that country. It's a huge, huge market, and there are problems in terms of what the things that soya lacks. And so I would be less concerned about soya, certainly for the Chinese market. It's there already. I'm much more concerned about building our image and our brand, about this complete food, which is milk. And it's interesting, on some of the things that Ronan Power will talk to you about on Wednesday, we have found that with some of the nutritional enhancements of milk that we've been able to bring about, that those milks then have an impact actually on cancer and things like that. And so we're too hung up with, oh my gosh, soya is going to take away from our marketplace. We live in a competitive marketplace, but there's 1.3 billion people in China, and there's basically and I'm making the figure up, 1.1 billion people that don't drink milk. And therefore you have 1 billion people who is an incredible opportunity for milk. And Joe, if you look at the success of the Kerry group and what they've done, and they're an old-fashioned, aware dairy group from Kerry, and through branding and through moving into different marketplaces, they've built themselves into a multi-billion-dollar business through branding. I think the message I'm trying to make, Aidan, is that if you're close to the technology and you're closer to the branding and you put the two together, I don't think there's enough milk in the world